absolutely fascinating, and I hope that you do too, is the theory of Planet X, Nibiru, and wormwood. Now, as you know, in the Bible, wormwood is it's mentioned in the book of Revelations, actually. And it's a translation. I guess it's from Greek. The Greek text is absinthos, and that translates into English as wormwood, and that's the English language version of the Bible. And there are other languages have like Hebrew in the Old Testament, la'ana, which means curse, and that means the same thing in Arabic and Hebrew. Now, the only clear reference that that this named entity occurs in the New Testament is in the book of Revelations, and the quote is, "The third angel sounded his trumpet, and a great star, blazing like a torch, fell from the sky on a third of the rivers and on the springs of water. The name of the star is Wormwood. A third of the waters turned bitter, and many people died from the waters that had become bitter." And that's in Revelations 8, 10, and 11. Now, that could be that can mean a lot of things. I've heard I've heard it being interpreted as, well, back when I was growing up, during the I don't know if you'd call it the height of the Cold War, or as the Cold War was winding down in the 60s and 70s. A lot of people thought that meant, ICBMs coming from the Soviet Union, the mutually assured destruction. We launch, they launch, they launch, we launch, and the whole world gets annihilated in thermonuclear war. And so that could be one person's interpretation of a great star falling from the sky. Others could be a meteorite, a comet, an asteroid. Could be a spaceship, like a giant kamikaze spaceship. Who knows? There's a lot of different, and that can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. But something falling from the sky and turn the waters bitter doesn't necessarily mean. It could mean it poisoned the water. If you've seen the movies, and sometimes you wonder, has Hollywood been conditioning us with like the movies with the alien invasions and occupation of planet Earth, movies like Armageddon and Deep Impact, where these giant asteroids and comets basically were going to cause an extinction level event, and only in Hollywood could something like that be averted. In real life, I don't think so. And depending on your school of beliefs, no one knows who's right, no one knows who's wrong. Could have been created 6,000 years ago. The universe could be 6,000 years old, or it could be billions of years old. Who knows? Who knows what really wiped out the dinosaurs? The prevailing theory, and let me stress that word theory, is before they discovered the crater down in the Yucatan Peninsula, the prevailing belief was that they died from, I think, volcanic eruptions. And then the prevailing theory, once that giant crater had been discovered, was that an asteroid had hit the Earth some 65 million years ago, and that wiped out the dinosaurs. And all you got to do is look at the surface of the moon, and you can see it's been hit by a lot of things, or that could have been old volcanic eruptions. Who knows for sure what? None of us are really there to see it, so who knows what the truth is. But doing my research, I wanted to not use my speculation and observation because I'm just saying I dabble in astronomy because it's just fascinating to me. But anyways, I wanted to read through different publications and sites and try to find something that I would basically say would be compelling. And this one article I found is on a site called kRSchannel.com, and it says, "Does planet Nibiru exist? And is Nibiru approaching?" We've all heard I don't know if we all have, but a lot of people have heard that this could be happening. But anyways, this is what they have to say about it. The new information on Nibiru is more mysterious than its own origins. Not too many people know the true details of Nibiru and why it exists in our solar system. So the author basically wants to give you some information. Now, let me tell you some basics first about this planet. Planet Nibiru, which was referred by the Sumerians as Planet X, was supposedly the 12th planet in our solar system. And the true meaning of Planet Nibiru is planet of crossing. In the hydrophilic of the Sumerians and Egyptian, they talked about how Planet Nibiru had an elliptical orbit, as opposed to our normal horizontal orbit, and it took around 750,000 years to come between Mars and Jupiter. And when it did, it created devastation on all the planets during its flyby. Archaeologists Zachariah Sitchin and Burak Eldam also suggested that this planet, which looks a lot like CR-105 with the similar orbit. However, the crossing path of CR-105 is very different than Nibiru or Planet X. Nibiru's 80% of orbit lies much further from the Sun, where CR-105's orbit is 60% away from the Sun and 40% near the rest of the planets. And according to historians, Tiamat, a planet which had lain between Mars and Jupiter around 510 million years ago, was a victim of Planet X as Tiamat collided with one of the moons of Nibiru. It crashed, broke into half, and as one half became the asteroid belt, the other half became Phobos, Mars, of the moon of Mars. And while the other half is our home, planet Earth. Out of destruction comes life. And that's a quote from a Hindu ancient text, Bhagavad Gita. Now, this planet is known to be, and it depends on who you ask, 20 times bigger than Jupiter with a burning moon, which acts like Nibiru's personal sun. And since Nibiru goes much further away from our sun, the theory actually makes sense and stands out. The Anunnaki, who are supposedly citizens of Nibiru, came to planet Earth around 25,000 years ago and gave a lot of knowledge and detail to the developing humanoids, whom at the time didn't have the brain capacity or thinking power to comprehend what the Anunnaki were saying. Even the Mayans had predicted the existence of Nibiru, and according to them, a certain dark energy in the shape of a planet which will be coming near Earth in the distant future. And every time this planet came around, the entire civilization of Earth was wiped out. Now, James McCaney is an expert on planet Nibiru and Mayan history, explained that around 10,000 years ago, major devastation occurred, which destroyed many of the civilizations on our planet. And he also explained how ruined cities in South America were vanished, not because of war or plague, but major physical destruction here on Earth. And he also went on to say that before Nibiru passed by us 10,000 years ago, the North Pole was somewhere in the state of Wisconsin, while the South Pole was somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. Now, if he's right, and this event did occur because of Planet X or Nibiru, then we shouldn't worry about it for the next 740,000 years or so, right? Well, no. Even as Nibiru crossed its path from between Jupiter and Mars, it's now surging upwards to make its longest route around the Sun, and that's due to the fact that its elliptical orbit goes in a roundabout very close to the Sun on one end, while 80% of orbit is really far away from the Sun, and that is why the earthquake that happened in Japan and Chile and other places could be due to the fact that the magnetic pull from Nibiru is increasing as it nears our plane, and the pull from Nibiru will increase gravitational force of each planet, and like in a rubber band type effect. And you're not going to find this on Wikipedia, but as far as the Mayan 2012 doomsday theory is concerned, well, it's 2015, so that didn't happen. Anyways, Nibiru will not be showing up this fast, because even though the earthquakes are happening and floods are taking place, like what happened in Japan a couple of years ago, it's still a good 10 years away, where the naked eye can detect it. And with that being said, I saw some video footage of what appeared to be like two suns, and why I never saw this actually. I mean, well, it happened like, right at sun up, and well, most of the time I'm asleep at sun up because I work really late at night, so I got to rest. But that's one theory of that. I mean, again, we don't know if this is true or not. I've listened to a lot of, I listen to Coast to Coast AM a lot. Back in the 90s and early 2000s, when I was doing a lot of a lot of shows, and I would be getting back from shows really late at night, the studio really late at night, or rehearsals really late at night, and I'd listen to Coast AM, and it was fascinating, and I became a fan of the show, and I still am. So there's a lot of, to me, it's fascinating. Other people, I may have put people to sleep. I may have scared the living daylights out of you. Don't let that happen, because we don't know if this is true or not. I mean, everyone has to make their own, draw your own conclusions and do your own research. I always say that. Don't take my word for it, because I'm not an expert at anything. But I do have some audio to kind of back up what I'm saying there. And again, all of this information will be posted on our website, thewakeupmissionshow.com, and on our Facebook page, the Wake Up Mission Radio Show. So if you want to check these links out later, feel free to do so. Do your own research, draw your own conclusions. It could be true, and then again, it might not be. Who the hell knows? Well, if it is, we'll all find out together. But anyways, I do have some audio, and most of the audio that I found, were really long, like 2 hours and stuff like that. Well, we don't have 2 hours, and those files were too large to upload anyway. So I just had to sift through a lot of different audio to find what I thought was good quality audio that would actually fit into our time frame. So we'll go ahead and get started on this one. I'm going to stop the audio to just clarify these dates. They didn't specify the year. And if it was this year or last year, well, it didn't happen, and this is all just speculation. But I did want to, I had put that in my notes also to make sure I clarified that. So we'll go ahead and let this continue. Well, it's not. Well, ain't that a pain? Well, it won't let me advance the recording. I guess it doesn't have a pause. It's just stop, and then it resets. Well, anyways. During my research on this, I found this fascinating interview with this guy. He lived in Puerto Rico, and he claimed to have been abducted by aliens, and they had given him a pretty dire warning. And I thought this was really fascinating. So let's go ahead and get to this one. Now this one, it's a little longer, and I'm going to go ahead and let this play. I'm not going to stop it because, well, we just saw what happened. Once it stops, it stops. It doesn't pause.
On the morning of May 14th, 1988, Amaury Riviera, a young man from Puerto Rico, photographed a giant disc, followed and circled by two jet interceptors. What makes the sensational pictures even more interesting is Riviera's claim that he had contact with the occupants of this UFO.
Hello, my name is Amaury Rivera. I live in Puerto Rico, and back in 1988, I was working in a nightclub, and there was a musical group there. One of my cousins wanted me to photograph the musical group, and she loaned me a camera with some film. On my way back home, I encountered two small beings, two small strange men, which I didn't think were men from outer space. And they took me somewhere where there were other people besides myself, other human people, like from Puerto Rico, I guess. From here, another human being showed up. He claimed to be from a distant planet. He was dressed in black. He had dark skin, but he was not a Negro. He had long black hair up to the shoulders, and he spoke to us with the mouth, verbally, and no telepathic speaking. He showed us various projections, which looked very real, the projections, and he informed us about a whole bunch of things that are even still incredible to me. Then they returned me to...
What did this holographic projection show?
The holographs were mainly, the first one that I can remember was like a short trip through space. We saw where he came from, where he said to be from. We saw his people, we saw the houses that they used. And the second one was about a meteor or a rock falling to Earth in the near future, which is going to cause a lot of havoc in the world. This would fall, it's going to fall in very near the Caribbean, Puerto Rico, and those other small islands, but it's going to affect the whole world, not just Puerto Rico. The last one is that they projected. It was showing us how there was only going to be one government on the planet Earth. They'll be living on some sort of artificial island that's going to be floating in the middle of a dark, black, dirty sea. And then this man returned me to my car again and left me somewhere different from where the whole ordeal had started. Apparently, it took me with car and all. After this, at this given time, I heard some jets in the sky, and I still had my cousin's camera, and I took the pictures, 4 of which I'm making public nowadays.
So the jets followed the UFO?
Yes, it was. They seemed to be surveilling it. I only got to capture just one of the jets in the photograph, but there were 3 of them. Or maybe I got in one of the photos one, and in the second or third I got one of the other ones, because they would go around it very far away, and while this one was closer, and turned, very far. And by the time this one was coming back, another one was turning over there. There was always one or the other close to the object, to the UFO.
Jorge Martin has carefully investigated this case.
Rivera's case to me, it's a very special one and a very important one, because in MORE's case, he was abducted and he was taken away by aliens. One of them was human-like, and 2 small creatures that they explained to him were some type of genetical or biological organic android that they made to do some chores outside, so they don't have to risk themselves in our environment. That's what they explained to him, the so-called human alien that he saw in the craft. And it's important also because of the evidences that he has on the case, because when he was released, he had a camera with him, and he was able to take pictures of the object that apparently had abducted him, the craft, flying saucer type, and also some jet fighters from the United States, excuse me, F-14 again. In most of these cases in the island, F-14s are involved with these situations of chasing and harassment and checking on these objects when they are seen in the different areas of the island. And he was able to get them in those pictures together. So this clearly, when you see those photographs, it's obvious that the government has been lying for many years, because there's the UFO there, and there's also the jet fighters dealing with the situation, which they denied for more than 4 years. It's there.
Were you able to locate any other witnesses?
That's what I was going to explain at this moment, Michael. The MORE's case is also very important, because I have several people who apparently had been contacted by the same alien that abducted MORE and the small ones that were with him in a separate fashion. They have nothing to do with MORE's incident. This human-like alien, is contacting people all around the area of the southwest of Puerto Rico. I have people from the town of Yauco who seem to have been contacted by this man. I have this fisherman, Andres Maldonado, who I got in contact with MORE, because he told me several things MORE had told no one before. Only I knew them, about the name of the alien and all the details that he was using to check on the people who really may have been in contact with the same being the night he was abducted, because there were about 14 other people there in the craft that night. And when Maldonado told me all this information that he couldn't know because he was not involved with the MORE's case, I got them together. And at this moment I have about 3 different people who seem to have been in contact with the same alien. So they are doing something, and they are getting in contact with more and more people and preparing people for something. And this is very important, because all this corroborates MORE's incident also.
Other witnesses contacted MORE himself.
So far, between 1988 and 1992, I've been able to localize 7 of these people, because I've gone on different TV shows and different articles, and I've always been asking if anybody remembers anything similar happening to them, and that year, during that time, Mother's Day, to please get in touch with me. And I've gotten in touch with hundreds of people, but out of the hundreds, 7 definitely were there with me. I still have 7 to go. Maybe I'll never find them. Maybe they'll see this.
You investigated the Rivera case, Colonel Stevens. What was your impression?
Well, of course, Jorge Martin took me to meet MORE Rivera shortly after I got there with a Mexican team to study some phenomena in Puerto Rico. And when I first met MORE, he was very reluctant to describe his case, because it still frightened him to think about it. And it took some time before we could develop enough confidence where he was comfortable talking to us about the case. But he would still tremble when he thought about it. He would turn pale. He'd become weak. He was frightened. But he has now reviewed the details and the points in sufficient length and depth that he can face the experience without the trauma, which he has learned to do. And today, or yesterday, we saw for the first time that he is able to manage his emotions well enough to describe that contact in considerable detail.
You carefully analyzed the Rivera photographs.
We took the pictures, yes. We took the pictures taken by Amaury Rivera to a NASA consultant facility in Scottsdale, where we put them through a computer analysis using latest state-of-the-art equipment. And we found that both the disc-shaped craft seen in the photographs and the aircraft are considerable distance from the camera, between 3 and 5 miles. We discovered that the jet fighter was moving and that the disc-shaped craft was moving relatively slow or not moving at all. We discovered that the ambient light conditions were correct in all respects. We were able to eliminate montages, paste-ups, reflections, models, all kinds of forms of technical manipulation of photographs, and we had to conclude that the pictures were real and that they were exactly as described by the witness when he took the photographs.
Noch dazu wurde Amaury Rivera eingeschüchtert und unter Druck gesetzt, seine Fotos herauszugeben.
Well, a short time after the incident, 3 men showed up at my home in Puerto Rico, and one of them stood in their car downstairs, and they claimed to be from CIA, and they handed me 2 pieces of paper, which I was so nervous I couldn't really read, but I remember seeing the letter CIA, which is the intelligence agency from the United States, and they said that it would be easier and better for me if I handed them the photographs and the negatives, but they did not say, what photographs or what negatives. They didn't specify, and I just told them that I did not know what they were talking about. And they said it would be easier because we have an order to register your house, to look through your house. And I said, well, go ahead, be my guest and look. And they looked, but they couldn't find them because I had hid them very well.
Well, is this guy full of it, looking for his 15 minutes, or was he telling the truth? Well, who knows? He seems to be very convinced of his experience that it actually did happen. And if you want to see this, if you want to see this interview with him for yourself, then, go to our website, thewakeupmissionshow.com, or our Facebook page, The Wake Up Mission Radio Show. All this information is posted there, and you can check it out for yourself and draw your own conclusions. But one thing I wanted to interject before we get back to Nibiru, I've seen, watching like Science Channel, Discovery, and what have you, what the shows with aliens, and they, one thing that most of the scientists do agree upon is, for long distance space travel, carbon-based organic life forms wouldn't fare too well unless, they had like some kind of faster, some way to travel long distances over short periods of time, like wormholes, faster than light, warp speed, whatever you want to call it. And that, artificial, if you want to call them robots, androids, or what have you, well, they had theorized that, when people talk about their experiences with abductions with the Greys, that the Greys aren't actually, they may be sentient life forms, but the Greys are actually these, like what this guy was explaining, the Greys are actually, like an artificial biomechanical life. So that I thought that was interesting when he mentioned that, when they said, they do like, menial tasks and chores that wouldn't be safe for a carbon-based organic life form. So, I just thought, oh, okay, that kind of connects those dots, and that's what we try to do here. And again, this is all just theory. Could be true, could not be. We don't know. None of us were there. But it's a fascinating subject. Well, for me anyway. So, when I, doing more research, on this website called Inquisitor, This just happened back this past January. And it said that has science just admitted Planet X Nibiru exists? And believers say that the people that believe this, wholeheartedly, they think that full disclosure is coming. And we've been wrong about other things, but when you think about, like in the audio earlier where the guy was talking about, the DoD employees being told to get prepared to bug out, the underground tunnels, all that, it kind of ties in. Maybe Jade Helm was not. The cover story was it was going to be training for, dealing with domestic terrorism when it's actually dealing with a global cataclysm. I mean, we don't know. But anyways, from this article that John Thomas Didymus, I guess that's how you say that, DidYmus. Well, anyways, he says that astronomers may have inadvertently revived the Planet X Nibiru conspiracy, because this has dominated the internet a few years ago. It kind of kicked up when that meteorite, went hitting Russia a couple years ago. Well, anyways, following a lot of the announcements by scientists of evidence that there are at least 2 planets larger than Earth in our solar system beyond Pluto, they say that the believers of this system, the Planet X Nibiru cataclysm believers, have been saying that their governments are preparing to disclose the truth to the masses. And scientists had announced in a new study published in the journal Monthly Notices of the Royal Astronomical Society letters that there's at least 2 planets likely bigger than Earth that are undetected in the outer fringes of the solar system, and they are thought to exist beyond the orbits of Neptune and Pluto. Now, according to Professor Carlos de la Fuente Marcos from the Complutense University of Madrid, who led the study, the evidence supporting the conclusion comes from observations of a belt of space rocks known as the Extreme Trans Neptunian Objects, or ETNOs, orbiting the Sun beyond Neptune. And these rocks were found to show an unexpected orbital characteristics that can be explained only by assuming that their expected paths are being distorted by some massive but unseen astronomical body nearby. And it was quoted as saying the excess of objects with unexpected orbital parameters makes us believe there are some invisible forces are altering the distribution of the orbital elements of the ETNO, and we consider that the most probable explanation is that other unknown planets exist beyond Neptune and Pluto, and the exact number is uncertain, given that the data is limited, but our calculations suggest that there are at least 2 planets and probably more within the confines of our solar system. Now, the term Planet X, it has its origin among astronomers in the period after the discovery of Neptune in 1846. After Neptune was discovered, several astronomers speculated that there might still be another planet beyond Neptune, and Percival Lowell proposed the Planet X hypothesis to explain observed irregularities in the orbits of Uranus and Neptune. Now, at first, the astronomers thought they had found Planet X when Pluto was discovered in 1930 by Clyde Tombaugh, but they soon realized that Pluto was too small to explain the observed effects on Uranus and Neptune, because these 2 planets are gas giants. They're not as large as Jupiter or Saturn, but they're a lot bigger than Earth. They're huge planets. Well, anyways, this realization sparked a renewed search for Planet X, and it was abandoned in the 90s after analysis of measurements of Neptune obtained from the Voyager 2 suggested that the inaccuracies in the estimation of the mass of Neptune could explain the observed inconsistencies in the Uranus orbit, and that they kind of just abandoned the hypothesis. But the discovery of hundreds of so-called trans-Neptunian objects, or TNOs, and most of which were identified as part of the Kuiper belt, consisting mainly of icy bodies with orbits similar to Pluto's, and it led Pluto to being demoted from the status of a planet to a dwarf planet and a member of the Kuiper belt. Well, I've actually heard this lady on Coast to Coast AM, Nancy Leader, and she's a fascinating interview. Well, back in the 90s when they were giving up on this, Nancy Leader founded a website called Zeta Talk and claimed she was in contact with extraterrestrials from the Zeta Reticuli star system, and she proclaims that she's been instructed to warn mankind that a large planetary body she called Planet X would pass into the inner solar system and cause our planet to undergo a pole shift that will destroy civilization. And she also claims that Planet X, it's about 4 times the size of Earth, would arrive in May of 2003 with catastrophic consequences. Well, here we are 12 years later. That didn't happen. And others who had adopted her idea associated it with the December 21, 2012 Mayan apocalypse. Well, that didn't happen. And they adopted the term Nibiru, and it's originally a technical term in ancient Babylonian astronomy, but it was basically derived from internet doomsday cults from the work of Soviet-born American writer Zecharia Sitchin, who claimed that civilization was originated by the Anunnaki, that race of people that they believe exists from planet Nibiru. Well, the identification of leaders Planet X seemed natural due to Sitchin's theory in his book, The 12th Planet, that ancient Babylonian lore indicates there is an undiscovered planet called Nibiru beyond Neptune, and the Anunnaki live there. And, well, after the efforts to debunk the theory by emphasizing that science itself has abandoned its earlier quest for Planet X, the revival of the scientific Planet X will inevitably help to re-energize the doomsday movement. So here we are again. So that, there's a lot of talk. It's been met with ridicule, and even by those that spent hours studying in an attempt to debunk it, only to find that they are now believers, and there are evident stirrings of feelings of vindication among these cataclysm believers who have long insisted that the government had been covering up the truth about the existence of this planet. So I guess we'll all find out together. There's nothing set in stone, and this is all fascinating stuff. But I wanted to run some audio because if this really isn't happening, why are they talking about it? And it's not necessarily this subject, but I don't know when this occurred, but they were talking about, this particular type of event in Congress. So take a listen.
Thanks for watching YouTube. So this was some good work here. Thank you, Marcy. Great catch. Appreciate you passing this on. This is from Third Rock from the Sun TV show back in, I think this is 1996. This is the first season. Used to like this show, actually. Not too bad. Anyway, take a listen.
And yet everyone on the planet gets all worked up about these pointless little behaviors, blissfully unaware of the great vaporizing meteor due in 2015. Which obviously doesn't exist because I'm kidding!
You detected even a small one, like the one that detonated in Russia, headed for New York City in 3 weeks. What would we do? Bend over and what?
No, Congressman, that is, I don't, again, I have to go back to what I said before. These are very rare events. From the information that we have on asteroids that we've discovered of all sizes, we don't know of one that will threaten the population of the United States, in 3 weeks. And we are trying very diligently, as I said before, with the President's budget, to put ourselves in a position where we advance the technology such that 3 weeks will not be something that causes us to panic, because we will be able to respond. We are where we are today because, you all told us to do something, and between the administration and the Congress, the funding to do that did not. The bottom line is always, the funding did not come, and I don't care whose fault it is or if it's anybody's fault. We all know what we're facing today, and we're all sitting here today as the Congress and the administration try to figure out sequestration, something that never should have happened, nobody planned to happen, but we're facing it today. And so the answer to you is, if it's coming in 3 weeks, pray.
And I second that motion from this gentleman. Be prepared, because, there's really no way to prove or disprove any of this. And it's a fascinating subject. There are thousands of, well, I don't know, but thousands may be a stretch, but there's a lot of hours of audio of this on YouTube. And I've got one other clip. I'm not going to play the whole thing. And it was said that it was from a NASA whistleblower. And a lot of it was more visual than audio, because they were showing like some underground tunnels and structures that had been built. But he does have some, some fairly legitimate information. So we'll play a few minutes of this.
The panic and the havoc seen in the Russian Urals last winter when a meteor the size of a house exploded in the skies, well, we could be set for a repeat. Scientists say the huge rock might not have been flying solo as first thought, but rather as part of a group of asteroids which still pose a threat to Earth. RT's Lindsay France now joining me live to tell us more about this. Lindsay, good to see you. Oh gosh, let the panic begin. But before we get into what could be what some are already calling the buddies of this asteroid that came down earlier this year, can you remind us exactly what happened back in February?
Yeah, that's right, Rory. Who can forget the asteroid on the 15th of February hit around 9:20 local time. An 11,000-ton rock, 18 meters wide, crashed into Chelyabinsk, of course, the mountains that separate Europe and Asia. We've got some sound of what the Russian dash camera, so widely used in this country, actually caught that very important morning, February 15th. Let's listen to what we've got. Very dramatic video there, and when that story came out, people were very, very shocked because we all wanted to know why it wasn't detected, and it scared, obviously, a lot of people. No one was killed in this. More than 1,000 were injured, but no one lost their lives, and that was what was such a shock to so many in this situation, and that is the fear. This went undetected, so that's why scientists are trying to figure out if there are more, possibly, on their way.
I mean, certainly, Lindsay, it was an early morning commute when this was going on. You were at work. I was here at work as well. Bloggers were going ballistic over this. And when you were just showing the footage there of windows exploding from buildings there, I suppose the sonic boom or whatever it is, I mean, this was a monster.
It was huge.
And it caused massive chaos and a fair amount of panic as well. The dash cam videos are just absolutely startling. But the news today, Lindsay, is apparently that monster rock may not have been alone.
Exactly. Now, it is what scientists are calling sibling asteroids. And here's how it works. So as I mentioned, the asteroid went undetected, obviously frightening everyone. And so what scientists did is they ran billions of simulations to find sibling asteroids that may have been on a similar orbital path to the one that hit in Chelyabinsk. Look at that. It's just astonishing. And what they found is nearly 20 different asteroids that are on this similar path. They span between 5 and 200 meters across, and they could one day follow their sibling to Earth if scientists, if they are actually following this asteroid on its similar path. Now, scientists do think it broke up, the large asteroid itself broke up about 40,000 years ago, creating all of these other rocks that are floating through space. But don't panic just yet, because scientists do also say that they haven't gotten a good 2-year chunk of time to monitor these asteroids. They've only gotten a very...
And they just keep going on about that. Now, the research that I did about Nibiru and wormwood were, these could, one thing that one of the main consensuses that I found was that it has a lot of, Nibiru or wormwood has a lot of junk floating around with it. It's not coming by itself if it is. And, these asteroid events that periodically occur. I mean, if you think back, the Tunguska event, I mean, that was almost, that was around 100 years ago. And that was pretty gnarly and massive, hit out in Siberia. Well, 100 years in geologic and space-time, that's like a blink of an eye. But anyways, one of the theories of wormwood is there is an entire solar system, which some people who believe in Nibiru has its own sun and other planets and moons coming with it. And that's going to pass through our solar system. And there could be a lot of disruption if this actually did happen. It could... well, change the face of the solar system and could wipe out planet Earth. I mean, look at the asteroid belt and the Kuiper belt. Could that be evidence from earlier collisions with the wormwood event or the Nibiru event? Was the asteroid belt actually a planet at one time? Was the Kuiper belt a full planet at one time? You have to think about all these things. And, like we were all up in arms about Jade Helm 15, that could have just been an exercise, like I'd mentioned earlier, in a cover story. Like Mars, there's theories that Mars has already been colonized. Could at one time Mars have had, civilization? I mean, just a few weeks ago, they, came out and said that, well, we found water on Mars. well, at one time, was Mars like Earth? Did civilization exist there? And since we're obviously, have been told that we're aiming to go back to Mars, could it be to recolonize Mars and figure out a way to do some type of terraforming to make it a habitable planet? Because it may, Earth might be in the crosshairs of Planet X Nibiru. Who knows? I mean, all of this, it's all just, theory, conjecture. It could be factual. It just could be a bunch of nut jobs. But anyways, we are coming up to the top of the hour, and this type of subject, I could do a month of shows on this, but we don't have time. We have to move on. So again, go to our website and check out the information for yourself. So that kind of concludes this first hour, and I hope you enjoyed it. I think it's fascinating, but we're going to take a break, and then in a few minutes we'll have our guest for today, Randy Shannon, on. So stay tuned. I'm real happy to announce our guest, Randy Shannon, is on with us. She's a network marketer, health consultant, libertarian activist, radio talk show host on a real radio station, the Fox affiliate AM 1050 Talk on Our American Cafe, with a really big audience one day, and we aspire to have that one day. So anyways, the beautiful and the vivacious Randy Shannon. Randy, are you there?
I am here, and I'm so glad to be here. A lot of people say it, but I genuinely mean it. So I love you, and I love Shalene, and it's just, you guys are like home. This is the family that I love. You're my kind of people. So
well,
I genuinely
mean
that from my heart. Yes.
Well,
so,
it's mutual. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That first hour, I got on maybe 10, 15 minutes before it was over, and I was listening, and gosh, everything that was said is so critically important for everyone to know. But, there is another side, because we are still here, and we still got to make the best of what we got while we're in it. And,
right.
Yes, and so I found myself, I've really been in this walk for quite a long time, and my grandfather, he's probably 98 years or something. He's right around there right now. And so when I tell you from the time I was a small child, I remember his prayer, and I remember him telling me about the different things that would be coming. And, you guys have talked about Nibiru, et cetera. And, he told me these things when I was a small child. I'm 47 years old now. And, so when I talk to him today, he's still around. And,
that's cool.
Yeah, he listens to all kinds of late night radio shows. He can't really see too much anymore. He's basically blind for all intents and purposes. And he's a World War II vet. He had dysentery, so it still battles him today. He still has repercussions from that. He nearly lost his life.
Wow.
I like to tell a story. When cigarettes used to still be cigarettes, now they're all very chemical laden. But when he was a smoker, as a young man, he was a bombardier on the airplanes when he was in the war, and he said one time they had to do an emergency landing in one of these countries where cannibals were on the ground, and so they made their emergency landing, and they were instantly surrounded by cannibals, and everyone was thinking it's over, except for my grandfather, who was very calm, and he knew he had the Lord on his side, and back in those days they had the white T-shirts, and they would roll up their pack of cigarettes in their sleeve.
Right,
so
right.
And so he said, if this is it, this is it. And he takes the cigarettes out, and he actually passes them around to some of the cannibals. And everybody was smoking. Nobody could communicate to each other, but he gave the peace offering. And they all stood there and smoked, and the cannibals did not eat them. He's still alive today.
Wow, that's scarier than actually the bombing raid. That sounds like maybe Papua New Guinea. Was that where they?
Yes, that's where he was. You're educated on that. Awesome. That's exactly where he was. So
yeah,
that may actually have been where he got the dysentery too. I'm not sure.
It could have been, and I don't know if still to this day if that's still practiced there, but that's there's places on this planet I really don't want to go, and that's in the top 5 list. I don't want to go there. It's like I love the tropics. I'll come down to Florida and hang out with you. That's as tropical as I want to get.
Anytime. There's no cannibals down here that I know of. So you never
Not
know.
yet,
You
right?
never know. Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
his line was smoking doesn't always kill, because that's their tagline, smoking kills. But actually, today's cigarettes, they do kill a lot more. So so that was one of his great topics. Yeah.
Wow, that's a great story. Well, with back in those days, that was standard issue along with your rifle and your mess kit. You got how many an X amount, a number of packs of Lucky Strikes to go with you.
Yeah.
That was just part of it. But that is a fascinating story. I bet he had all kinds of great stories to tell. Because a lot of guys don't really want to talk about that. I had an uncle. He was a lot older, and he fought in the South Pacific. And when my brother and I were small, a lot of times we would go over. It was mainly on Monday nights. My mom would go to circle meetings at her church, and she'd drop us off at Uncle Osborne's house. And every time we go over there, I'd pester him to tell me stories about the war. And I don't know if he just told me just to shut me up, or if he didn't mind talking about it, because a lot of people, it was very traumatic and they never got over it. Like, I had another uncle, same. Well, he fought in the European theaters. My dad's oldest brother, and he didn't really cope real well. All I knew of Uncle Henry was Uncle Henry the alcoholic, and then when he passed and we went to his funeral, the full-on 21 gun salute, flag draped coffin. Then come to find out all these heroics that because I think he was over in the Ardennes. I'm not sure, but he was a medic, so he saw a lot of
it was awful.
a lot of the worst of it. And after that, I was like, wow, I wish I would have gotten to have known him, but I was real young when he passed. But
yeah, maybe I'll put you on the phone with my grandfather one day and see if we should do it soon, because he is 98. But there is things that I know for a fact he will not discuss. He says he was witness to atrocities galore, and he doesn't even say whose side it was on. And there's a period of time where he absolutely blocks it out. So I have no idea what did happen. Maybe he would be more apt to tell a man than he would his granddaughter, but he definitely has stories. And there's things that I can say on air, but they're a fact of war. Some things that he has told me, which were pretty horrific, which I would be happy to share them. But they are gruesome, and so if they're gruesome, and he has other stories that are far worse that he will not tell me, so I can't imagine honestly what it could be.
Right,
but,
right. Man's inhumanity to man.
It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. That's why when I was listening to all the preparations in what you just played, it's so critical, and I really do hope that people take it to heart. Because, my grandfather has told me ever since I had my first son, and I have 4, and they range from 16 to 26, he has talked to me about war and now it's just like hitting me right now. I wonder if what he said to me is something that he witnessed. He said to me about standing strong in your faith and not wavering. What if you saw the enemy taking your child, and he would say this when my sons were just infants, and hung them upside down and were torturing them in their genitals. So it makes me wonder if that's what he witnessed as well, that he's not telling me about. But he wanted to make sure that I would be unwavering, because we will see the worst of the worst. Like, mankind can be absolutely horrific. And here's been my take on this for years, and I don't understand why it's not common sense. If we send our boys over to these other countries, and we have, not we, because I don't claim this, but when they go over there and they are causing damage, killing innocent life, et cetera, and our government has told us they are the enemy, what is to stop them from, when they come over here and their government told them, oh, we're the enemy? I mean, we have been made out to be the enemy to the world. So do we think that they're going to be any kinder to us the day they show up on our soil, which, hey, they're probably already on our soil according to the numbers of people that Obama's let in this country.
I know, right?
Yeah, and I think they're just waiting. Literally, the gym I go to, I point out a couple of the guys in the gym to my sons and to their friends, and I call them, I say, you see that guy over there? He's Al-Qaeda. Like, I literally point guys out that I think the moment that they got their heads all wrapped up in the turban, they would pass for that. And they are working out, and they're unsociable. So they could be it. They could be preparing, and they will wreak havoc. And I think that they're already walking amongst us, to be honest. I'm
with you. I mean, the the immigration system as a whole, but in particular, the southern border has gone unchecked for so many years that there's no telling who has come over here. I mean, when you look back historically, like within the past century, our government, and you can attribute it to the Albert Pike letters if you believe that, the elite, the Illuminati, Bilderberg Group, Trilateral Commission, the usual suspects as to why they want to let this happen and have our country become infiltrated with these types of people. I mean, the CIA and our government has been meddling in the affairs of these other countries for, almost 100 years now. No wonder a lot of them are pissed off. I would be pissed off too if there was somebody from another country.
Yeah, why does anybody still send their son or daughter off to the military right now? Pull back and then they have nothing. I mean, but you and I, we do our best, but we're still not getting to the masses. So then there's all these other radio shows that pop up, which is great, and then there's the Fox affiliate one that we do on Saturday mornings. So we do talk about it, but honestly, two people on that show have already been visited by the feds. So like we have to be. It's not that we don't believe everything that like you and I can say on this program that we can't say on the other one because they get visited by the feds. So they do have their squashers of the truth. They're out there. I can attest to this.
No, trust me, I know. It's like, freedom of speech, that's an illusion. I mean, I know.
It is an illusion. Yeah.
I spent 6 months in the LA County Gulag system for freedom, for First and Second Amendment issues. So trust me, hon, I lived it. I know.
Yeah.
And I didn't even do anything, in this day and age, especially with the passage of the Patriot Act, you don't have to do or say anything. All it takes is for somebody to accuse you of doing something. And, what we were taught in school, that whole innocent until proven guilty, that's a total crock. The onus is on you to prove your innocence. You're guilty until proven innocent. And that's just a fact of life. I mean, we've got the largest prison population on the planet. And, there's a lot of, scumbags that deserve to be in prison, but I firmly believe there are a lot of innocent people that are in prison.
Oh, I do too.
For bogus reasons or complete fabrications and lies, and you can tie it into the prison for profit industry too. But there's a political aspect outside of the money aspect of it as well. And it's like your granddad says, you can't waver from your faith, because whether you believe we're in the end zone of the end times or not, I mean, just look around with, and when you think about the Bible, a book that was written, how long ago, and everything that was written in that book, you see it playing out in real life when you walk out your front door.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And especially, with the persecution of Christians in this country nowadays. I mean, I ain't no saint, and, I'm honest, I don't go to church a lot. But, with what's happening to these people, you can flip through the Bible and you can find something that, predicted, well, this is going to happen during this particular moment in history, or however you want to put it. And, you're exactly right. These people, they're here, they're training. I mean, like, no matter what you believe, as far as like what happened on September the 11th, those guys are here for a long time and didn't raise any red flags when, their visas expired. No red flags were raised that, they went to flight school. Well, I don't want to learn how to land a plane. I just want to learn how to fly a plane. That would send off some pretty serious alarm bells in my head if somebody told me that. I would be like, hey, wait, why does he don't want to learn how to land? That's the most important aspect of flying and driving, is the ability to stop.
Exactly. Oh man, you're absolutely right on. Okay. Sorry, somebody walked in right as we were talking. Yeah, I don't know where it's all going to play out. If you do go according to the word, then I mean we already know just how soon is that going to flood in. So that's why I guess when I heard the first part of your show, I decided and I saw what the topic was going to be. I thought, what, people need to have a positive side too. It's not all bad, and we do need to, because it may not be tomorrow, so it may not be a year from now. So we got to make the most of it while we can.
Right.
And when I listen to that too much, then, and not listen, but when I start talking about it and I like kind of crumple up and don't live life near as much. It just kind of reminds me of like when I was married.
Oh, yeah, I know.
No,
I've been there.
It's an example, right?
Right, I've lived it. I know. Yeah, it's like, leave me alone.
Okay.
I don't want to go home.
So when you got out of a bad marriage, then things kind of lightened up. And, you know, that's why I kind of wanted to give people some hope and give them some things to reach for. And
Right.
you did an awesome job laying that all out. And
Yeah, I did an awesome job of bringing everybody down, so now it's your job to bring everybody back up.
Bring
with
everybody
some positivity.
Well, every single move that we make, it counts in one way or another. You know, and think about it. You are only as strong as your commitments. Think about the relationships, your business relationships, you know, churches, whatever it is. So for starters, let's just use the Bible as an example. So in John, and I never really talk Bible, but there's a couple of things. I heard this message, and I wanted to kind of relay it. In John 6:50, it says, "This is the bread which cometh down from heaven, that a man may eat thereof and not die." So there's commitment. That's what he's basically saying. Do this, not going to die. There's commitment. All things pertaining to life and godliness for sinners of every nation. I don't really like to say sinners because, you know, it says that he doesn't interact with the dark. So who repent and believe in him will not die, period. So there's the commitment. The church is only as strong as the commitment. The stronger you are, the more committed you are. If you go to the church and you don't commit, you have no right to expect anything. Maybe. It's kind of like a bank account, and you can't withdraw out of the bank account if you don't deposit, right? So if we don't commit, then you can't receive. So your commitment will set free the blessings that you are having on hold right now. And that can be, you know, I'm relating it to the church right now, but I'm going to relate it to everything else here in a minute. So in John, now this is what struck me. I'd never seen this before. John 6:66. Interesting, right? 6:66 right there. Okay. So you go to that verse in Scripture, and many of his disciples went back and walked no more with him. That's what it says. So in 6:50, he talked about commitment. Do this, and we're committed. But in 6:66, a bunch of them left, and they had no more commitment. And so he lost those. Those were the quitters, the non-committers, etc. So then in John 6:67, he says to the last 12, "Will ye also go away?" In other words, he's not changing his ways. It's his way or the highway. It's going to be done right even if he's the last man standing. So he's saying, hey, you going to go too? If so, that's fine. Go, because I'm not going to change. He's not going to change his standards, and we can't change our standards either. So you're either with it or get off the train. So then in John 6:68, Simon Peter answered him back and said, "To whom shall we go?" And basically in translation, that means you're the best, there's none better. So now let's relate that to life. Not that that's not, but I'm just saying. That is talking about commitment. I'm not going to change my standards. You're either with me or get the hell out of the way. And I probably shouldn't use that word when I'm talking Scripture, but that's the bottom line. With me or get out of the way. So we all want the best. We want the best commitments. We want the best standards. We want the best relationships. We want the best quality of life, especially in the times that we're in. So what do we do with it? We put this into life now, like in our relationships right now, in our businesses now, or our job, or about just being a great American and standing now. What do we see all over in the politics? We see a bunch of weasels, a bunch of spineless, worthless criminals not standing. What do we see at the county level? What do we see in the banks? This is all we see is just low, worthless, spineless, standard, non-committing types of people. And we have to interact with that all day long. I literally, Randy, which in case the audience didn't get it, there's two Randys on today.
I know.
Right? So that's just a good thing right there.
I know, we got the coolest names.
Exactly. So I wake up literally happy every single day. And then I go out into the world, and then I run into all these people that are sleepers, they don't care, they just put out the lowest, most minimal effort all around me. And so, you know, my kids are like, "Mom, you're so amazing in business. You're this, you're that, you're so high energy." You're like, my kids think that it's so great because they now are going out into the world and they're experiencing this lack all around them. So we have to put this into life right now. And people either are committed or they're not. It's one way or another. So take your job, for an example, or if you're a business owner, which I am. I do traditional business. I do network marketing. I don't take it lightly. I put my heart into everything. I will work 18-hour days. I will work 24-hour days if that's what it takes. I don't care. Sleep can come. I will get it another day. If something needs to be done, I commit. So the other part of that equation is, if it's not what you love, then it's not right. Go out and replace it. So if it's a job, get a different job. Get something that you love. All the money in the world isn't worth losing your happiness over it. So get something you enjoy doing, and then it's priceless, literally.
Yeah, you're right. And our guest last night, he said that same thing. And I'm sure you've heard this saying too. When you are doing what you love and you're getting paid for it, you never work another day in your life. A man or woman's hobby becomes your job, then you never work another day in your life. And what's better than that? It don't get much better.
I so agree. So I could take on some other projects right now, but they don't taste good to me in the sense that I don't see myself being happy taking on some of these other projects. In the last week, I was asked to invest in something. I'm not hopping on that because I can't see feeling really good about it. And even if it made me a bunch of money, what I would lose was far greater. I would have to be worrying about tracking my money. I'd have to be worrying about what's flying out the door the wrong way. I can't do those kinds of things. Or if I know that there's a project that I could take on that could be extremely lucrative, but I'm dealing with flaky people who are not reliable, then it's not worth the headache to me, and I won't touch it, or I will back out of it.
I don't blame you, and this is something that has been drummed into my head and yours too. I'm sure when we first got involved in this type of work that we do, because we don't do just a radio show here. We've got a business. You're not only branding a product or a service or a company or selling a product, service, or company. You're branding yourself, and you're branding and you're selling yourself with the product and service. And if it's not something that you would be proud to represent, why would you want to do that? Why would you want to recruit, like, say, a friend into that if it's not something you're committed to or you believe in or you see the value in? Why would you do that?
Exactly. So, if you're not in a job that you don't love, or you're not a business owner of something that you love, get rid of that and you will relieve all that stress that you're dealing with right now. Start something of your own. You guys are involved in stuff, I'm involved in stuff, and it's fulfilling and it's happy. It's not that there isn't days that don't have stress, but okay, so now let's move into the other area which we kind of touched on, relationships. Is it all it can be? Are you giving it your all? If not, start right now. You liked that person at one time, so if it's if it's repairable, repair it. At least give it that 1,000% effort and do it for a few months. And if it doesn't work, then why are you staying in that misery? Get out of it. But honestly, genuinely be able to say, yes, I did it all. And, some people will differ with me on that. That's okay. They're going to bring up the Bible. They're going to bring up the Word and say, well, I got to stay in it as long as there's not been adultery. Well, I don't know. I said to somebody tonight that's a friend that is up and down in their marriage, and I said, let's say they're 40 years old and they only get to live to be 60. They got 20 years left. How do you want to live those years? I don't know. I can't prove it because there's just not enough in the Bible to warrant it, I guess. But if I'm absolutely miserable and I gave it my absolute all and I've been abandoned in that marriage, I'm out. Why do you want to give the one and only life you have? So, people can do what they want. What's your thoughts on that, Randy?
Well, I agree. And, I'm no Bible scholar. I know there's, those who say that, divorce is highly frowned upon. So I don't know if that's exactly what it says in the Bible or that's someone's interpretation that they're preaching that it says. But, the way I view a relationship and a commitment to that is, I see people say, yeah, it takes work, and I'm like, yeah, it does take work, but, there comes a point to where if both sides aren't bringing an equal amount of love and value and commitment and, all the putting their all into it. I mean, what's the point? And if we, because tomorrow's not guaranteed. You said, like, if someone's 40 and they knew they were going to live to 60, why would they spend that last 20 years? I mean, it's like, go out and rob a bank and go spend that last 20 years in prison. It's going to be the same thing, only you don't have any bills to pay, right? But I guess to my own failings, I'd always look for, perfection, and believe me, I'm far from perfect, but not perfection in a physical way, but just where a relationship was just something easy to do, and that could be, I could be way off base, where it's like, why do I have to work at being with this person when we should just, our souls, bodies, minds, everything just join as one, and we go skipping along our merry way for the next till death do us part things. So I don't know. I'm a complete failure at relationships. So I don't have anything good to add to that, unfortunately.
Well, let me throw one other thing in on the relationship part, because we have a lot of listeners, and this gets posted out. Your show and stuff gets posted out on social media. I posted it out on different things like Google Plus and Facebook and Twitter. I see porn pictures. Now, I'm a woman, okay, so I look for what the males that are in my friends list do. I go look at them, and then I go look to see what their likes are. And if I see them at any way, shape, or form liking porn or pornographic type pictures, I block them completely, because even that I don't want in my life. And so I look at those guys, and liking those pictures left, right, and center, I say, why are you doing it? Don't you want the real woman sitting right next to you? And do you really think that the porn girl is going to give you the time of day? Okay, and so why waste 1 second of your life on that trash? You can't touch it. You can't feel it. All you can do is look at it. Go lay your wife down and go look at her. Way more fulfilling. Go do that, and then your life will get better. So, and then there's people, like me, who just block them completely. I don't like it. I've blocked tons and tons of friends. It was part of the downfall of my marriage, and so I want nothing to do with it, or a guy who wants anything to do with it. So they literally get blocked. So if men, and I can only speak for men because I'm a woman, if men want a good woman, get rid of and not just porn, but just all the junk stuff out of your life, and give all your attention to that relationship, back to commitment, back to high standards, back to wanting the most for you. So what people got to remember is it doesn't matter what they're going through. They need to make no excuses. They need to commit more, serve more, change more, give more, do more, expect more, learn more, all of the above. And if they need to change their career, they need to do it, and do it right now. What are you waiting for? Life, the clock is ticking. And if you love what you do, stick with it. Just give it more. If you're already at that point where you're at that plateau where you're super happy and you don't need to change anything, that's great. But we still have a country falling apart, and they need to just continue to stand and be a better American, and be a better American through social media, through conversations, through going to groups and having conversations and actually trying to make change. So, and then they need to, not question their commitments just because they don't see instant results. Like, look, a lot of people are standing right now in this country, and we're not seeing a ton of great results, but we just have to recommit to this every single day, to what we have, whether it's the relationship, it's the career, it's our country falling apart in shambles. We have to just wake up and commit to this every single day, and we gotta get to the goals in life. Quit fooling ourselves without having these commitments, because commitment is absolutely required. This is where we're gonna grow. So Jim Rohn, I gave a speech one time. I basically copied his speech for a Toastmasters class, because I didn't have the ability to get up in front of a room and speak. I didn't have the ability to get on a radio show and speak. I was very nervous. I was very timid. And I listened to one of his speeches one time, and so I used it for my first speech in the Toastmasters group. And one of the lines that was in it, he said, "Bangladesh is hard, America is easy." And we do still have it easy here. We have an uphill battle, because we have a lot of factors at the head that are trying to destroy this great nation, but there is still so many great people, and they're even involved in law enforcement, and they're even involved in the government, and when they stand, this evil head is chopping them, but they still do it. They still do try. They still stand out. I know of police departments right now that are ready for a gun grab, and they're not going to do it. I know of towns where the cops are hot, as in dirty, I should say, is probably a better word, and the good towns know about it. What they would do to be prepared, I don't know. I don't have that inside information. But, you know, I mean, it's not too hard to find out where the dirty cops are, and when crap goes down in this nation, who's going to actually turn on the people and who isn't. It's pretty simple, you know, just see it, who's getting complaints on them, and then what is internal affairs doing? Nothing. Look at any big city. They might slap a wrist here or there, you know, or an occasional imprisonment of a cop, but, you know, it's not too hard to know where the dirty cops are in this town. And I'm just using that as an example. So just remember that every single move we make counts in one way or another. Think about it like this. When we wash a car, it doesn't make it run any better. To improve its performance, we have to get inside. And that's what I'm talking about here, these commitments and high standards. We in this country, this is such a great nation. We turn lemons into lemonade. We turn weeds into gardens. We turn pennies into fortunes. And it's because we make commitments to do these kinds of things. And we don't need to play with the hand that life deals us. We can change it all, any day, any moment, at any time that you wish. We can do this. So
I was just going to say I agree. And when you think about this commitment, we'd talked about this I believe it was the week before last. The commitment that the Founding Fathers made when they pledged their lives and their fortunes to each other when they signed the Declaration of Independence. You know, there's a lot of guys on there, you know, and Paul Harvey had a beautiful, there's a beautiful video of Paul Harvey naming these guys and what happened to them, you know, like during and after the War for Independence and the founding of this nation. And I mean, you know, we know like John Hancock and George Washington, but there's a lot of other guys on there that probably, you know, you would have never heard of had Paul Harvey not mentioned them. And these guys, a lot of them ended up, you know, penniless, broke, because they made that commitment, and their sacrifice gave us this country. And not even just those guys that signed that document, but, you know, I got into an argument with this guy online. This is stupid. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but it was about the gas tax in North Carolina. And I was like, well, hey, you know, fight tyranny, drive 30 miles to South Carolina, and you know, gas is 30 cents a gallon cheaper, and then this way you are self-defunding the DMV. Well, I don't want to be inconvenienced. That's too far to drive. And I said, you know what? Don't tell me that. You go tell that nameless, faceless Continental soldier that marched with General Washington 20 miles through the snow with bloody, frostbitten feet, this guy you've never heard of in your entire life, just to get to the fight.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, he probably didn't want to be inconvenienced either, but he got out and did it. And I'm like, you know, and our nation has become so soft and complacent in that way that people won't make that commitment. They, you know, there's too much of, well, let the other guy do it, or I might lose my job, or I might lose my freedom. Well, guess what? If you go through life with that mindset, with what's going on with this government, guess what? You know, they're going to come for you, or they're going to come for your kids. You know, we've reached a tipping point, and it's time to make a stand. And, you know, there's little pockets of, I wouldn't call them pockets of resistance. I would call them pockets of constitutionality all over this country. And they're starting to make a lot of noise. And what we've tried to do is connect a lot of these people so they can network and work together. And, you know, it's been a beautiful thing. And I know, you know, you do as much as you can, too, with your organization and your activism. So we've all got to, like you said, make this commitment. We've got to make it to ourselves, to each other, our families, and our country, because we ain't got nobody else. We are all each other have when it comes to that. And I tell you what, I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees any day of the week. You know, it just ain't going to happen.
It's not going to happen, and people have to get that little snap in their head too. No matter what, they got to commit, and they have to have high standards. And when people start to put those high standards into place, they will take stands, and they will not tolerate the bunk that's going on in this country. And I know the listeners on your call, they get it, but maybe this call recording will go far and wide, and it will affect somebody for change. And maybe it inspired somebody to stand higher, to stand taller today. You know, be leaders, not followers. Be bold, not timid. You know, don't settle. Go for the goals, whatever it is. Press on when confronted with adversity. And right now, we're all being confronted with adversity. They're killing the middle class. Everything that should be right is wrong. All the corruption at every single level right now, it's an infestation of cockroaches. And we have to stand above this. We have to have high standards. We got to have commitments to not let the cockroaches seep in. Oh, might that make you a little bit more money if you do the wrong thing? No. Say no to it. Say no to the junk. Don't get so immersed in the sports that you forget what's going on around the country. Don't be willing to give up your rights so easily. Every time I fly, I opt out. I don't want the molestation pat down, but I also don't want the x-ray, so I inconvenience them. At least that's the twist I have going on in my brain for while they're patting me down. And I always talk to those people and say, this is a violation of my Bill of Rights, right? I say these things to them. And, I've had TSA agents, look, it's a job, it's a paycheck for them. And this is where people need to stand. I wish all TSA would walk off the job, but that won't happen because they're getting a paycheck. But I've had TSA agents say to me, as they're patting me down and they've heard me out, they say, yeah. And they're cynical. They say, America, land of the free, right? I mean, they know. They
know it's bunk. And it makes you wonder, like with, Stalin's secret police, the Stasi of East Germany, the Gestapo, if a lot of these people were the same way, they're like going, I really don't want to be here. I don't want to do this, but it's a paycheck. Or if I don't do this, I'll get shot. And, I've opted out, period. We were talking, last night we were talking about this. I used to love to fly. And so did Shalene. I mean, it was great. And, it was the most efficient way to get from California to North Carolina and back to see my family. And after September the 11th, I just hate it. And I will drive unless I absolutely have to. I will not fly, period. And that's just it. I will drive, ride my motorcycle, whatever, to get from A to B. The only time I'll fly is if I've got to be somewhere that's way far away and I don't have a lot of time. But otherwise, screw it. I'm driving. I'm not even going to deal with that.
Yeah, I've taken more road trips. I went back to the Midwest 2 times just to Iowa, and I drove them. And that's like almost 24 hours each way. I don't want to do that when I can fly in 5 hours, but I did it to avoid the molestation. I hate it that bad that I would rather put myself in the car for 24 hours and lose the sleep than fly. So I'm like you. Probably the last year that I flew a lot was right around 2008 and 9. And I flew a lot. I mean, every month I was on at least 1 or 2 flights for business. And I just completely cut it off in 2010. And it's like what you said. It's a rare, rare, rare moment if I fly. Cannot stand it. Because I don't want to go through it. A lot of these people are so rude. They treat you like you're absolute trash. And an opt-out is like a nightmare. They take your stuff away from you when rule number 1 is you're not to be separated from your stuff. So I argue with them all the time on that. And, they look at me like, oh, and I've had an agent, a TSA agent, say that. Oh, we got a troublemaker over here. I'm like, no, I'm not a troublemaker. You're separating me from my stuff. Don't you hear it on the speaker? Never be separated from your stuff. So it takes people to stand. And, every time I fly, and you tell me, Randy, when you opt out, are you not the only one around opting out? I never see anyone opt out.
No, everyone's just going through like it's like an assembly line at a factory, right? Yeah. And and it's kind of like it was some credit card commercial that used to come on a couple of years ago. Everybody, and they're playing that. There's some factory music that used to be played in a cartoon. I don't know the name of it. I'm not even going to try to hum it, but everybody's playing with a credit card.
No, I want to hear
that. I can't remember it all. Something like that, right? Well, all these people are going through the line to pay for their coffee with their credit card, right? And then the one schlub shows up with cash, and everything stops, and everybody's pissed off at this guy because he's paying in cash instead of a credit card. And we've talked about the cashless society for a long time, and well, not for a long time, but a lot on the show, right? And, that's the one guy, the troublemaker, the individual who is using legal tender as opposed to, swiping a piece of plastic through an electronic scanner that the government can trace. Oh, well, so-and-so bought a cup of coffee with creamer and sugar at 8 o'clock in the morning at the 7-Eleven, whereas, the guy paying in cash, they don't have a record of, well, this guy bought a large cup of coffee with half and half and sweet and low at the 7-Eleven at 8:01. They don't have the record of that, and it's and it's propaganda. I'm looking back going, I'm paying in cash. To hell with it. And there's all sorts of ways to opt out, all sorts of ways to fight back. And we were talking about this. It's like. Chris Rock, I don't really like that guy. I think he's an ass. But one thing he said that I agree with is we don't pay taxes. They take taxes. Well, if the entire country, if you're paid on like a W-2, file exempt, you will immediately defund the federal government. If everyone filed exempt, no income taxes are being taken out of them. What the hell are they going to do? Throw us all in jail? I don't think so.
Right. It's called standing together. You're absolutely right. Like, I don't know if you saw it yesterday, but I wrote a letter to what was the restaurant? Olive Garden. They sent me a coupon to come into the restaurant because, clearly I haven't been there in a long time. And this is what I wrote them. I said, we stopped eating your genetically modified food a while back. When you clean it up and learn the facts that GMO food causes cancers and tumors and death, then maybe you'll change the whole path and take care of your customers. Until then, we go to organic, non-GMO places to eat. There are a lot of places that got it long before you. What exactly are you waiting for? And I included a list of 400 organic, non-genetically modified food makers. Some are restaurants, some aren't. And that got shared all over Facebook, got lots of likes, got some comments. The point is it was a one-paragraph letter. Everyone can write that. I stopped, and so did my kids. We stopped supporting all of the restaurants around here that that serve the poison food. So if everyone in mass stopped going out to eat and just bought organic, that would stop the whole genetically modified food chain in a day.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, and it's not the same as, well, don't buy gas on Tuesday to screw the oil companies. No, gas isn't going to go bad because nobody bought it that day. It'll still be good tomorrow, but this genetically modified garbage they're trying to pass off as food, it's got a shelf life, and they're going to be sitting on a lot of smelly inventory, and they might get the message, hey, you know what, and I agree with you. It's like, go to your local farmer's market, find a butcher, a local butcher with locally sourced not produce, but locally sourced livestock. That's the word I'm looking for. Instead of buying all this crap at the grocery store or whatever, and learn to grow your own stuff. And whether your stupid city says you can or not, grow your own vegetables. What are they going to do? If the whole city grows vegetables, well, this piece of paper says you're not supposed to grow vegetables, and we're going to send the police to your house. Well, if everybody in the city's doing it, then what is the police going to spend all those resources going to everybody's house trying to arrest them? I mean, you're going to end up with a revolution on your hands. And the same thing with like collecting your own rainwater and stuff. If everybody would tell these idiots or these criminals that wear suits and robes, no, your law, what you wrote on that piece of paper is not law. We will not comply. That's kind of like my motto. I will not conform. I will not comply. I'm a long-haired, tatted out, sleeved out, guitar playing, motorcycle riding entrepreneur, and I'm not going to conform. I ain't cutting my hair. I ain't going to work in a corporate office wearing a suit and tie. I'm a T-shirt and jeans and boots type of guy. That's just it.
Exactly. By the way, on the garden thing, and you're right, and see, there is victories when people have high standards and they commit to things. I did an interview with Dr. Edward Group. He founded the Global Healing Center. He's a guy that several years ago, he's a former military, by the way, and then he went into chiropractic medicine. He's a doctor. The feds went in because he was curing people of cancer. So the feds went in and raided him, took all of his patients' folders, and they told him to his face that they burned them. So he was never getting his patients' folders back. And they also told him directly to his face that there will never be a cure allowed for cancer.
Yeah, it's big business. Why? I mean, they go out of business. And, we were talking, and that's like the little Amish girl, she went, their family fled overseas. She's cured because they didn't want to take chemotherapy. And now the girl's, she's fine. And now they're trying to figure out how to get back in the country. And I was like, sneak up through Mexico or go on a Birkenstock. Yeah. Well, they'll roll out red carpet for you and just make your way back to Amish country.
You're cured now. What are you going to do? Have to take the chemo now? I hope not.
No, what they wanted to do was make her take preventative chemo. It's like, we couldn't get the poison in you this way. Well, we're going to try to get it into you that way. I'm like, you know what? The people that told them that, they need to be strung up. Straight up. Gallows pole for those people.
Well, I can tell you, according to Dr. Edward Group, he said. So this is a testimony to the people standing. Thank God people are standing and making commitments to stand. He said in the last year, over 800,000 new organic gardens went in. That's a lot of new gardens. That's a lot of breaking away from the grocery store poison, from the farmer's poison, from Monsanto. It's a good-sized breakaway. And I'm hearing, and maybe you know more on it, that some of these McDonald's are closing up because they're not getting the business that they used to, which, I don't know why they wouldn't, because there's still a sector that's always going to go there, but because it's cheap food. But, all people have to do is look at the studies. Monsanto only did a 3-month study on the corn, but a Sweden university took it 4 months and beyond, and 100% of the rats died of cancers. Well, 85% died of cancers, tumors, cysts. Monsanto tried to debunk it, but this university used Monsanto's corn. And I don't know if I said this when I was on your program before, but when I was in the Midwest, this is a factual story, I witnessed it with my own eyes. I had free-range chickens that me and the kids raised from they were 3 days old. And they were free-range. So, while they were just tiny, we grain-fed them. But as soon as they could be eating the bugs and the grass, we just let them go. And every day they went out, they ate all the bugs, they ate the ants, they ate the flies, they ate everything they could get their mouths on. They ate the grass. And then, here's the thing. It was in Iowa. So the farmers all had their corn in the field. And when they finally took it out in the fall, when they take that grain out of the field, a lot of it will drop to the ground. It doesn't make it to the truck. And so our chickens, all the wildlife, think about this. The deer, the birds, everything go out there. The raccoons, the possums, all went out there and ate that grain on the ground. Well, when my chickens laid eggs after that, the eggs had no hard outer shell. I saw it with my own eyes. So if they didn't have a hard outer shell, what is happening to our children having children? They're having spontaneous abortions. They're not carrying these babies to term. They're being born with all kinds of health issues. 1 out of 3 people are getting cancer now. Why? People are not stopping and asking why. We know why. And so we have to take stands. We have to take commitments. We have to educate. We have to make our relationships strong. I was telling somebody today, I was driving down the road, and I went through a construction zone. It was a shortcut, okay? No, I had the windows up, so I don't know. But it was a shortcut, so I thought, okay, great, I'm going to avoid all this traffic. So I go through that, and what did I do? I ran over a bolt. The bolt went into my tire, and these are very, it's a 2014 Jeep. It's a nice truck, nice tires, everything is beautiful. And all of a sudden, this alarm goes off on the inside of the car, and the front tire is at a 40 PSI, and the back tire is at a 29. And then before, I barely made it to the driveway, and it's at a 26. And I can hear the air just flowing out, and I can see the bolt. I still was happy, Randy. I don't care. I'm not going to let any of that stuff get to me because my commitment is to being happy. And even when junk gets thrown at me, I'm still going to be happy. Whatever.
Right.
It's tire.
Yeah, you just throw a patch, pull the bolt out and throw a patch on it and fill it back up. A subject that I find absolutely fascinating, and I hope that you do too, is the theory of Planet X, Nibiru, and wormwood. Now, as you know, in the Bible, wormwood is it's mentioned in the book of Revelations, actually, and it's a translation. I guess it is it's from Greek. The Greek text is absinthos, and that translates into English as wormwood, and that's the English language version of the Bible. And there are other. Other languages have, like Hebrew in the Old Testament, la'ana, which means curse, and that means the same thing in Arabic and Hebrew. Now, the only clear reference that that this named entity occurs in the New Testament is in the book of Revelations. And the quote is, "The third angel sounded his trumpet, and a great star, blazing like a torch, fell from the sky on a third of the rivers and on the springs of water. The name of the star is wormwood." A third of the waters turned bitter, and many people died from the waters that had become bitter. And that's in Revelations 8, 10, and 11. Now, that could be that can mean a lot of things. I've heard I've heard it being interpreted as, well, back when I was growing up, during the I don't know if you'd call it the height of the Cold War, or as the Cold War was winding down in the 60s and 70s. A lot of people thought that meant, ICBMs coming from the Soviet Union, the mutually assured destruction. We launch, they launch, they launch, we launch, and the whole world gets annihilated in thermonuclear war. And so that could be one person's interpretation of a great star falling from the sky. Others could be a meteorite, a comet, an asteroid. Could be a spaceship, like a giant kamikaze spaceship. Who knows? There's a lot of different, and that can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. But something falling from the sky and turn the waters bitter doesn't necessarily mean. It could mean it poisoned the water. If you've seen the movies, and sometimes you wonder, has Hollywood been conditioning us with like the movies with the alien invasions and occupation of planet Earth, movies like Armageddon and Deep Impact, where these giant asteroids and comets basically were going to cause an extinction level event, and only in Hollywood could something like that be averted. In real life, I don't think so. And depending on your school of beliefs, no one knows who's right, no one knows who's wrong. Could have been created 6,000 years ago. The universe could be 6,000 years old, or it could be billions of years old. Who knows? Who knows what really wiped out the dinosaurs? The prevailing theory, and let me stress that word theory, is before they discovered the crater down on the Yucatan Peninsula, the prevailing belief was that they died from, I think, volcanic eruptions. And then the prevailing theory, once that giant crater had been discovered, was that an asteroid had hit the Earth some 65 million years ago, and that wiped out the dinosaurs. And all you got to do is look at the surface of the moon, and you can see it's been hit by a lot of things, or that could have been old volcanic eruptions. Who knows for sure what? None of us are really there to see it, so who knows what the truth is. But doing my research, I wanted to not use my speculation and observation because, I dabble in astronomy because, it's just fascinating to me. But anyways, I wanted to, read through different publications and sites and try to find something, that I would basically say would be compelling. And this one article I found is on a site called kRSchannel.com, and it says, "Does planet Nibiru exist? And is Nibiru approaching?" We've all heard I don't know if we all have, but a lot of people have heard that this could be happening. But anyways, this is what they have to say about it. The new information on Nibiru is more mysterious than its own origins. Not too many people know the true details of Nibiru and why it exists in our solar system. So the author basically wants to give you some information. Now let me tell you some basics first about this planet. Planet Nibiru, which was referred by the Sumerians as Planet X, was supposedly the 12th planet in our solar system. And the true meaning of Planet Nibiru is planet of crossing. In the hydrophilic of the Sumerians and Egyptian, they talked about how planet Nibiru had an elliptical orbit, as opposed to our normal horizontal orbit, and it took around 750,000 years to come between Mars and Jupiter. And when it did, it created devastation on all the planets during its flyby. Archaeologists Zachariah Sitchin and Burak Eldam also suggested that this planet, which looks a lot like CR-105, with the similar orbit. However, the crossing path of CR-105 is very different than Nibiru or Planet X. Nibiru's 80% of orbit lies much further from the Sun, where CR-105's orbit is 60% away from the Sun and 40% near the rest of the planets. And according to historians, Tiamat, a planet which had lain between Mars and Jupiter around 510 million years ago, was a victim of Planet X as Tiamat collided with one of the moons of Nibiru. It crashed, broke into half, and as one half became the asteroid belt, the other half became Phobos, Mars, of the moon of Mars. And while the other half is our home, planet Earth. Out of destruction comes life. And that's a quote from a Hindu ancient text, Bhagavad Gita. Now, this planet has known to be, and it depends on who you ask, 20 times bigger than Jupiter with a burning moon, which acts like Nibiru's personal sun. And since Nibiru goes much further away from our sun, the theory actually makes sense and stands out. The Anunnaki, who are supposedly citizens of Nibiru, came to planet Earth around 25,000 years ago and gave a lot of knowledge and detail to the developing humanoids, whom at the time didn't have the brain capacity or thinking power to comprehend what the Anunnaki were saying. Even the Mayans had predicted the existence of Nibiru, and according to them, a certain dark energy in the shape of a planet which will be coming near Earth in the distant future. And every time this planet came around, the entire civilization of Earth was wiped out. Now, James McCaney is an expert on planet Nibiru and Mayan history, explained that around 10,000 years ago, major devastation occurred, which destroyed many of the civilizations on our planet. And he also explained how ruined cities in South America were vanished, not because of war or plague, but major physical destruction here on Earth. And he also went on to say that before Nibiru passed by us 10,000 years ago, the North Pole was somewhere in the state of Wisconsin, while the South Pole was somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. Now, if he's right, and this event did occur because of Planet X or Nibiru, then we shouldn't worry about it for the next 740,000 years or so, right? Well, no. Even as Nibiru crossed its path from between Jupiter and Mars, is now surging upwards to make its longest route around the sun, and that's due to the fact that its elliptical orbit goes in a roundabout very close to the sun on one end, while 80% of orbit is really far away from the sun, and that is why the earthquake that happened in Japan and Chile and other places could be due to the fact that the magnetic pull from Nibiru is increasing as it nears our plane, and the pull from Nibiru will increase gravitational force of each planet in a rubber band type effect. And you're not going to find this on Wikipedia, but as far as the Mayan 2012 doomsday theory is concerned, well, it's 2015, so that didn't happen. Anyways, Nibiru will not be showing up this fast, because even though the earthquakes are happening and floods are taking place, like what happened in Japan a couple of years ago, it's still a good 10 years away, where the naked eye can detect it. And with that being said, I saw some video footage of what appeared to be like two suns, and why I never saw this actually. I mean, well, it happened like, right at sun up, and well, most of the time I'm asleep at sun up because I work really late at night, so I got to rest. But that's one theory of that. I mean, again, we don't know if this is true or not. I've listened to a lot of, I listened to Coast to Coast AM a lot back in the 90s and early 2000s when I was doing a lot of shows, and I would be getting back from shows really late at night, the studio really late at night, or rehearsals really late at night, and I listened to Coast AM, and it was fascinating, and I became a fan of the show, and I still am. So there's a lot of, to me it's fascinating. Other people, I may have put people to sleep. I may have scared the living daylights out of you. Don't let that happen, because we don't know if this is true or not. I mean, everyone has to make their own, draw your own conclusions and do your own research. I always say that. Don't take my word for it, because I'm not an expert at anything. But I do have some audio to kind of back up what I'm saying. And again, all of this information will be posted on our website, thewakeupmissionshow.com, and on our Facebook page, the Wake Up Mission Radio Show. So if you want to check these links out later, feel free to do so. Do your own research, draw your own conclusions. It could be true, and then again, it might not be. Who the hell knows? Well, if it is, we'll all find out together. But anyways, I do have some audio, and most of the audio that I found, were really long, like 2 hours and stuff like that. Well, we don't have 2 hours, and those files are too large to upload anyway. So I just had to sift through a lot of different audio to find what I thought was good quality audio that would actually fit into our time frame. So we'll go ahead and get started on this one. I'm going to stop the audio to just clarify these dates. They didn't specify the year, and if it was this year or last year, well, it didn't happen, and this is all just speculation. But I did want to, I had put that in my notes also to make sure I clarified that. So we'll go ahead and let this continue. Well, it's not going to. Well, ain't that a pain? Well, it won't let me advance the recording. I guess it doesn't have a pause. It's just stop, and then it resets. Well, anyways, during my research on this, I found this fascinating interview with this guy. He lived in Puerto Rico, and he claimed to have been abducted by aliens, and they had given him a pretty dire warning. And I thought this was really fascinating. So let's go ahead and get to this one. Now this one, it's a little longer, and I'm going to go ahead and let this play. I'm not going to stop it because, well, we just saw what happened. Once it stops, it stops. It doesn't pause.
On the morning of May 14, 1988, MORE Riviera, a young man from Puerto Rico, photographed a giant disk, followed and circled by 2 jet interceptors. What makes the sensational pictures even more interesting is Riviera's claim that he had contact with the occupants of this UFO.
Hello, my name is MORE Rivera. I live in Puerto Rico, and back in 1988,